All right, folks, we are back here on Issues and Answers Friday. Uh, in the first segment, we talked about the monumental victory of the United Auto Workers and how maybe hundreds of thousands of people's lives, maybe millions of lives, are going to be affected by their new contract that will set the tone for American workers across the board. And they're talking about doing something even bigger across the board in 2028, aligning with all workers for maybe a general strike, which I personally think might be the only way you're ever going to get any real substantive change in this country. But that was not the only news story of this week. Bobby Knight. Bobby Knight, who was he was quite a character who won NCAA titles at Indiana for many years. And was the scowling face of college basketball, passed away at 83 years old. Knight's family made the announcement on social media on Wednesday night. He had been hospitalized with an illness in April and had been in poor health for some years. He's one of the winningest and most controversial coaches in the history of college basketball, finishing his career with over 900 victories in 42 seasons at Army, Indiana University, Texas Tech, and mentored some of the best coaches and players in college basketball and the NBA. He also coached the U.S. Olympic team to a gold medal in 1984. A little known thing about that, Bobby Knight actually was the first the very first person to call Michael Jordan the GOAT. Basically, he said back in 1984 when he was his coach in the Olympics, he said, look, either that is the best player that has ever played or he will be very soon. So, I mean, look, Bobby Knight knew his basketball. He definitely did. He coached Isaiah Thomas to, I believe, they won an NCAA title. He won an NCAA title, I believe, with Isaiah Thomas in, I want to say 1981. His bona fides as a college coach were not in doubt whatsoever. He did care very little of what other people thought of him. For that, he chose Frank Sinatra's My Way to celebrate his 880th win in 2007, which was then the record for a Division I men's coach. He was called the General. That was his nickname for many years. Because of, and his trademark temper also cost him his job at Indiana in the year 2000. He once hit a police officer in Puerto Rico, threw a chair across the court. I remember that. And was accused of wrapping his hands around a player's neck. And that was always the thing that made me so mad about Bobby Knight, was that he seemed to be able to get away with so much crap that I feel like other people could not get away with. Could you imagine a black coach getting away with what Bobby Knight has gotten away with over the years? I just don't see it. I don't see him being able to, people being able to get away with what Bobby Knight got away with. Seriously. and his critics fumed relentlessly about his conduct, but his defenders, they supported him 100%, especially in this state, especially downstate. You know, they loved them some Bobby Knight downstate. Matter of fact, when he died a few days ago, they announced it in all the shopping stores and all the malls, and it was downstate. It was like a president or something had died. Now, he did do some good things. His players always graduated, and he never was accused of any major NCAA violations. He expected his players to exceed expectations on the court and in the classroom. He abided by most of the NCAA's rules, even when he did not support them. He was beloved by a lot of his former players. But a lot of the abusive behavior, the toxic behavior that he exhibited overshadowed all of his good parts. You know, how great his record was, how he was a tactical genius, how he was an innovative coach. He had a very great resume, but it's just that his abusive behavior is what really got him caught up a lot of times. When he retired in 2008, he left with 4 national championships, including one as a player at Ohio State. He was the number one record holder in victories. He coached everyone from Mike Krzyzewski, who went on to Duke to be maybe the greatest college basketball coach of all time at Duke, to Isaiah Thomas, to Michael Jordan in the Olympics. His coaching tree, the guys from his coaching tree, included Steve Alford, Lawrence Frank, Keith Smart, Randy Whitman, Mike Woodson. You know, so many people. And, you know, so like I said, he had a very big footprint on the game. But the thing that, to me, I think that maybe the most important thing about Bobby Knight's legacy is that he essentially was Donald Trump before Donald Trump was Donald Trump. This sort of bloviating, abusive, white blob of entitlement and, you know, rage that we see at Trump rallies. That was Bobby Knight in like 1985. And he symbolized sort of this, what you see now, this sort of I'm taking my country back energy. You know. Let me take this call really quick. Hello, caller.
Okay, good evening, Scott.
What's up?
You know, you're giving out a lot of knowledge, and this knowledge is very, very important. But I just got something to say to you.
What's up?
Out of all the players that he coached, he never got no charges filed on him and went in front of a jury, right?
Nope.
Scott, I swear to you, a person can be at the most biggest fool on this earth. When they get in front of a jury for doing wrong or putting their hands on people, what happens?
They get in trouble.
And when they get in front of that judge, how humble do they get?
They get real humble usually.
If you think he'll be in that front, he'll be in front of one of those sitting judges, acting a fool, putting his hands on that judge.
I seriously doubt it.
He'll be telling that judge, Your Honor, I'm sorry for grabbing that young man. And that lawyer would probably have to cuss him to shut him up from begging so much. So I'm just saying, when people don't go to the right channel with a fool, then that's what they get, baby.
I heard that.
Okay, but all I'm saying, I hope the world listens. But anybody do that, just take them to court.
All right.
Bye, good man.
Well, all right. But I can't really convey the type of behavior that Bobby Knight was prone to exhibiting. I think it's best to let the man speak for himself. Somebody put together a sort of collage of the looniest Bobby Knight statements. I mean, it's something.
To refer to this whole thing from start to finish as a real Mickey Mouse operation. But that'd be an insult to Mickey Mouse.
I'll paraphrase Churchill a little bit when he talked about the Battle of Britain. Never have so many thought they knew so much and actually knew so little.
I don't think I would ever qualify as a biblical scholar. I mean, that's what I get paid to do.
No motivational device I've ever come across is as good as this.
Your players were asked this too.
That's him whipping his players with an actual whip.
I mean, I wouldn't know why. I never carry a gun with me. I mean, what am I going to do? I mean, I'm going to play. If I've ever shot a kid, I'd be scared to play for me. If I walked out there and I'm saying, boy, that son of a bitch shot 3 guys last year.
In my entire adult life, I've never used the expression game face. So I have no idea what it means or what you're supposed to do.
But again, before you interrupted me, and you have a real faculty for doing that.
Thank you.
No, I don't think it's anything to really be too proud of myself. I think when I talked about Pat...
Bob, you came here to do an interview. I'm asking you questions.
When I talked... Well, then let me finish the answer.
Okay.
Is that okay,
Go
Jeremy?
ahead.
Is that fair enough?
Please, go right
Have I interrupted your questions yet?
Yes.
No, I haven't. You've interrupted my answers with your questions, and then I've tried to get back. So let me finish this. You got a long way to go to be as good as your dad. You better keep that in mind.
Get that sign and put it down! I don't want to see that sign again or I'll clear this out! You got that?
Here he lies, deep beneath this veneer of glass. He was a tough guy, and he kissed nobody's ass.
When you only got 2 people, they're going to tell you I'm not going to be here. One is our SID and the other is me. Who the hell told you I wasn't going to be here? I'd like to know. Do you have any idea who it was?
Yeah, I do.
Who? They were from Indiana, right?
No, they're not.
No, weren't from Indiana, and you didn't get it from anybody from Indiana, did you?
Please.
No, I'll handle this the way I want to handle it now that I'm here. You it up to begin with. Now just sit there or leave. I don't give a what you do. Now.
Yeah, that just some of the man himself, Bobby Knight, the late Bobby Knight. Just a list of some of the things he did over the years. He was, talk about putting him in front of a courtroom. He was actually convicted in absentia for assaulting a police officer in Puerto Rico during the Pan American Games. He forfeited an exhibition game to the Soviet Union in 1987 when he pulled his team off the court for being called for a technical foul. This one, I don't think he would survive in today's climate. He actually told Connie Chung in an interview, "I think that if rape is inevitable, relax and enjoy it." He was answering a question about how he handled stress and later tried to explain that he was talking about something beyond one's control, not the act of rape. He was accused of headbutting one player and kicking his own son, Pat Knight, who I also hear is a nut, during a timeout. At a news conference, he fired a blank from a starter's pistol at a reporter. During a NCAA tournament event, he actually used a bullwhip playfully on his star player, Calbert Chaney, who is black. So you can only imagine the visual of him holding a bullwhip, hitting Calbert Chaney, who is a brother. His most famous outburst came in 1985 when he threw a chair across the court. Now, could you imagine? Could you imagine if a brother did any of that? Could you imagine if a brother did any of that, especially back then? You know, I remember we just had one outburst from my man John Chaney from Temple, and everybody was acting like the world ended back in the 90s, but it wasn't nothing near any of this. You know. Now, what actually led to his downfall came many years later. In 1997, video actually showed him putting his hands around the neck of player Neil Reed during practice. And that prompted Miles Brand, who was the president of Indiana University, to put him on a zero tolerance policy following an investigation. Then a few years later, in 2000, he actually got fired because a student, not even one of his players, a student came up to him and said, "Hey, what's up, Knight?" Which Bobby Knight considered disrespectful. He grabbed the young man's arm and lectured him about manners, and a few days later he got fired. Now, I remember when he got fired, right? A lot of these, a lot of these good old boys downstate, they were apoplectic. Oh my God, I can't believe. But after all the stuff I just read you, and all the stuff you heard him come out of his mouth and say, can you imagine anybody getting away with the crap he got away with as long as he did? Yes, he was a great coach. Yes, he accomplished a lot. Yes, apparently he ran a very clean program, which is saying a lot in today's day and age. Hell, to have no NCAA violations from recruiting or anything. That says an absolute lot. It's almost impossible in this day and age, and he somehow did it. But the sheer amount of disrespect and disregard for cultural norms and abuse this man was allowed to dish out for 30, 40 years before anybody checked him in any capacity just shows you that there is indeed white privilege in this country. And of course, bringing everything full circle, his last foray into the public spotlight was campaigning for Donald Trump. That was the last public outings that he had, was the campaign for Donald Trump in 2016. Obviously, Donald Trump represents a lot of the same disregard for common decency, respect, exhibits a lot of the same disrespectful and abusive behavior that other people are not allowed to get away with. And that's why a lot of the good old boys loved him some Donald Trump as well. Big I want my country back energy. These are people who are mad at the women's movement. These are people who are mad at a lot of them at the civil rights movement and, being held accountable. A lot of them lived vicariously through Bobby Knight, and now they live vicariously through Donald Trump. It's unfortunate to say. Ultimately, he was his legacy is very complex. But I have no problem to admit that I was not a fan of him. And I don't think that ultimately he made the world a better place in the long run. I think the amount of toxic behavior he put out into the world was definitely something that we could have done without. But rest in peace, though. God bless. We'll be right back after these. And when I get back, happy yappies!